Who's Matt Hall in a nutshell?
Matt Hall is.
I didn't know you had a podcast until I actually did my research. So that's quite sick. So the fact that you've gone down the podcast route, do you think it's helped, or do you think it's kind of like gone a different direction as in like how you
Yeah,
wanted it to? I did
yeah.
watch your series, and I have to ask, did you get applied? Did you apply for it, or did you get approached? Because some people I speak to, they say they got approached to do these sort of shows. So which one of the two did you get?
I
Hello and welcome to the Anmol Lakhani show. It's series 2, episode 7. We are finally back, and today I am joined by Matt Hall. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. I always love a good chat with good people, so it's good to be here.
Yeah, so let's start with growing up first of all, because we haven't got that long. So who's Matt Hall in a nutshell?
Matt Hall is somebody who's always been determined, ambitious, just tries to do good stuff, I guess. um, but then I would say that because I'm him. Ask other people, they might disagree. No, I'm joking. It sort of when I was a kid, I really just wanted to be a performer. That was the thing. I just remember like normal school stuff didn't really agree with me, academic stuff. But I did love performing. I loved acting and I loved TV and stuff like that. So that was what I did when I was like a kid slash teenager. And then when I was 19 years old, I set up my first business, which is an entertainment management and agency. And we had like function bands, tribute acts, singers, things like that. I never thought about being in business. It was just kind of the way things led. And I just saw an opportunity and I just thought, oh, start a business. Like completely naively, and that then led me down this whole path now today, where I guess I have a huge passion for helping people in business. I know business can be scary. I know my path into business was making a lot of mistakes and getting a lot wrong and losing more money than I made for a lot of time. But now, through this is my 15th year now of having various companies. So now my main passion, really, and a lot of what my content is about and my podcast show sorry, is helping people with business. That's kind of what I do now.
Oh, that's quite cool. I didn't know you had a podcast until I actually did my research. So that's quite sick. So the fact that you've gone down the podcast route, do you think it's helped, or do you think it's kind of like gone a different direction as in like how you
Yeah,
wanted it to?
I first started listening to podcasts in probably 2014, so like 11 years ago now. And back then, not as many people were listening to podcasts. It was a show called The School of Greatness, and it's an American show by a guy called Lewis Howes. And that, just listening to that, at the time, I'd been running my business for years. I was stressed out, I was overworked, I wasn't making great money, I was working all hours. And just listening to that show changed my life. Like it just introduced, just hearing other people through conversations like this and hearing what they'd done and different experts on different, subjects really changed my life. And it was years later, my cousin and I used to train in the gym together. And I just had this idea. I was like, why don't we do our like the English version of this American show and just interview people? And it was purely at the time a passion project. It was just let's learn from cool people, connect with great people, and share those conversations, those lessons. But absolutely. So my first podcast that we launched back in, I think it was either 2019 or 2020, I can't remember now, but that is still going today. That's called Success School. And that's just basically conversations around what success means to that person and, what they've achieved and those kind of things. Just inspiring chats, really. But I do now have a second podcast, which is a bit more of a solo show. And that is predominantly for people who want to learn business. But sort of to answer your question, because I feel like I didn't really there. Sorry, that was rubbish. But in terms of has it helped, I think I always say to people when it comes to building businesses, at the heart of it, business is about people. It's about relationships. And it's about building genuine relationships with people. And what a podcast enables you to do is build a relationship with your audience. You know, if you've got hundreds or thousands of people listening every week and they're hearing you and, you know, your thoughts and what you're going through, you're building these relationships where they're starting to feel like they really know you. So then, I don't feel like a podcast is an easy way to make money directly
I
from a
agree.
podcast, right? You know, a lot of people talk about like getting, you know, sponsors and things and making money that way or monetizing YouTube. I think for most people, that is not an easy route. But in terms of if you have a business and you talk about that on your show, it can be a great way that people that are listening to the show then go, do you know what? I actually want to work with you or buy from you. So it can help business in that way, generally, I think.
Yeah. Like I started my podcast mainly because, like you said, I want to have a chat. I want to learn like loads from different people. So I kind of get why you wanted to start it. But
Yeah.
let's shift to where did you growing up and how has it shaped you as you are today?
Was that where was where did I
Yeah,
grow up?
where
Yeah, so I grew up in Bradford in the north of England. Just very humble beginnings, really. My dad was in the fire service. You know, came from a council estate and just was like he wanted to do an honest job and do the best he can, and he worked his way up through the fire service and a really hardworking guy. And then my mum was, and actually she still is, a hairdresser. So there was nobody like there was no because obviously I was growing up wanting to be a performer, and then as I got to 19, I then went down this path of entrepreneurship and business. But there genuinely was, and really is, nobody in my family that were actors or you know performers or entrepreneurs or things like that. Um, but what I did have growing up is just really supportive parents, and that's something you know my mum and dad. Even though they were like they didn't see the performing thing themselves. Like my dad were like, you know, try football, try rugby. And I'm like, no, dad, I want to be on stage. And it was just like this alien thing for them. They did everything they could to just support me every step of the way. And I think as well, a lot of people speak about business that you have to take risks. And actually, I don't think you do these days. I think there's much easier ways to do business if you're doing the right business. But
yeah,
back then, I think, you know, it was very different 15 years ago. And the one thing I've always been comfortable with is failing and making mistakes and, you know, taking risks. And I actually think when I reflect, a big part of that was because I knew my parents loved me no matter what. Like part of me was wanting to do it for them because I wanted to make them proud. And at the same time, I knew that if they could see I'm giving my best and I'm trying stuff, actually the result wasn't the main thing that mattered to them. It's just he's giving it his best. And I think that's important for people is to know that they can fail, they can make mistakes, and it doesn't matter, like, because you learn from those failures and you only become better. So that is something that I reflect on in my childhood that I felt safe to fail, if that makes sense.
yeah. So Love Triangle, obviously, like if you have you watched series two?
Yeah, I did actually. I watched the whole thing.
I didn't get around to it because I was like maths, Australia, and all that.
Uh,
I did
yeah.
watch your series, and I have to ask, did you get applied? Did you apply for it, or did you get approached? Because some people I speak to, they say they got approached to do these sort of shows. So which one of the two did you get?
I was approached, and I think I was approached quite late in the process because at the time I was just doing my thing, doing my podcast, building my business, whatever.
Yeah,
And I think I'd been single for a while. And I think they were at the end of the casting process, and there just was a couple of people they still needed that they'd not quite found the right match. So they just reached out to me on Instagram. It was just a DM saying, like, we're doing this brand new show. It's not been done before. We weren't told the full truth, which is quite common, I believe, in reality TV. We were told it's just this wholesome dating show. We were told it was called Love Match. I had no idea the title was going to be Love Triangle. And they just said it's just going to be a fun, wholesome show where, you know, we're going to match you with somebody that is your type on paper, But the fun aspect is you're going to go on one date, and then immediately after the date, you're going to move in together and live together, and it's just going to be like a social experiment to see
Oh,
how well
wow.
you get on. So I just kind of thought, okay, at the time I was single, I was doing okay in business, I was happy where I was in life, but obviously looking for a girlfriend. And I was like, do you know what? That sounds absolutely bonkers. It sounds mad, but what a cool opportunity. Why not go for it? So yeah, they sent me that message. We had a couple of chats back and forth, and it was very quick. Within a few weeks, there was like, we want you, you're doing the show, you start recording in a few days. And it's like, oh my God, it was like, I think sometimes you think if you was going to do a show like that, I think most people think you'd have months to prepare and,
Yeah.
you'd be able to think about it. And there was none of that. It just from that messaging Instagram to day one of filming was literally a matter of weeks. It was crazy.
Can I just say the dinner parties were explosive?
That's one word.
Yeah, much better than Married at First Sight, I have to say.
Oh, really? Did you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, 100%. What, how did you cope with the arguments and all that? Because if I was in your situation, I would have just walked out, I would have left.
Yeah, for me, it was not what I signed up for. And at the
Yeah,
time, I'd never even heard of Married at First Sight. And obviously, once we'd finished filming and everything came to light, we were told, it's not Love Match, it's Love Triangle. It's by the same producers, I believe, of Married at First Sight Australia. And it's like their new show. It's a very similar show. But we weren't told that. That's not what we got into. So for me, when suddenly I realized actually I'm in a triangle and actually I'm competing for this girl, and there's all these other couples that are going to be at dinner parties shouting and arguing and all these big personalities, I was like, this is everything I was told it wasn't. So I
yeah,
just kind of found it was a bit of a shock to the system. Um, and yeah, truthfully, I did struggle with it. It's not me. It's not the environment you want to be in. People arguing and, screaming over a dinner table. So I struggled. And I think people don't always realize or fully appreciate because you watch a TV show and you think, oh my God, they're like in love after 2 days and, really passionate.
it's not how it works.
And people are just like, that seems extreme. But I think what people fail to understand is when you film something like that, you're taken away from your environment. You don't have your friends, your family, your loved ones, like anybody in your life that you normally talk to on a daily basis, you can't speak to. So
Yeah,
you're in this fake world where every day you don't know what you're going to have to do or what the next thing is. You're just living every day with anxiety, or I was. And everything is amplified because you're not going to work, you haven't got a job, you haven't got your friends, you haven't got your family, you're just you and this other girl filming all day and night, a genuine connection. And so everything gets amplified, all emotions get amplified. And when you are struggling, the people who know you best, who you'd normally turn to for advice, are not there. And I think people don't appreciate what that's like unless you've done it yourself.
yeah, I agree. So, what would you say your favorite bit about Love Triangle was?
When it ended. When I got to go home. Do you know what? I joke about it, and also in seriousness, it was hard. Like mentally and emotionally, I struggled at times. I'm quite health conscious, and I'm not really somebody who drinks alcohol or anything like that.
Yeah.
And halfway through that process, I found myself drinking alcohol every night, and that's not me
Oh
at
shit.
all. Yeah, I don't drink. Well, I do from time to time, but I was doing it every night. I also started vaping, which I hate smoking. Like, I despise it. But people in the crew were vaping, other cast members were vaping. And it's that thing I was just saying there about being away from family, friends, the internet, social media, your job. There's nothing there other than this intense situation. So it was like a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
I turned to drink, and as soon as I left and we stopped filming, I was back to being my normal self after like a day or two. But it was a coping habit. So it was genuinely tough. It was quite unhealthy, but the other side of it is you make of it what you can. And I made some brilliant friends from it. People that, I absolutely love to pieces that I would have never otherwise met. So I think that and just, being able to give something like that a go is an experience as much as it was tough and there's things I didn't like about it. It still is something I'm grateful for.
If you got approached to do another reality show, which one would it be?
Oh gosh. Probably not dating. Like I
Yeah.
probably wouldn't want to do something like that again because I think what I learned about myself is I'm quite a sensitive person when it comes to relationships and dating, and putting that out on
Yeah, of
TV is
course.
not comfortable. Um Something fun. Like I think something like a show like The Traitors would be fun. But the thing I don't like about The Traitors is, you know, you're encouraged to lie. Like that is the show. I
Quite
like the fact that
scary.
it's fun. And yeah, I enjoy that there's like challenges and it's competitive. Something like that, but I just don't know about the lying bit. That there's something doesn't sit well for me.
Yeah. So, have you got any tips or advice for anyone who's probably going on the show like Love Triangle or Big Brother or anything like that?
So from my experience, I would say whatever you think being in that situation would be like, just be prepared. It might be harder than you think. So I think we look at it and go, oh yeah, it'd be tough, but it's only a few weeks out of your life or a month or whatever. And what a great experience. And I'll just have fun. I think people might have that attitude, but when it's actually your life that you're living day in, day out, people are filming you, people are purposely challenging you and putting you in difficult situations. And potentially a lot of people are going to watch how you respond. That
Yeah.
pressure and that environment can actually be. And I spoke to one of the guys off this new series that's just gone out, and he said similar to me. He said, I think we had a lot in common. He was like, I consider myself quite, a strong minded person. I've done a lot of work on myself. I feel like I can handle most situations. And he said, but I really, really struggled. Like I found it really tough. And I said, mate, I was exactly the same. So my advice would be just make sure that you know what you're going into will probably be harder than you think. You have to be mentally strong. Make sure it's definitely right for you and you want to do it. Maybe just question, why do you want to do it? Like, what's your intentions? Is it just to have an experience, have some fun, or is it because you're craving fame, or, because if it's the fame thing, just be very careful, is what I would say to people.
Yeah. So let's go on to take that because you are a Gary Barlow tribute act. Am I right?
No, you're not far wrong. So I have played Mark Owen in a Take That tribute
Mark
band
Owen.
for years, and that's part of what my business was. So, like I said, we had this business managing acts and so on. So I worked in the band that we managed, or one of the bands that we managed. So Mark Owen, yeah, who's the guy who sings "Shine" for people who don't know. So I did that for years. I don't do it now. Occasionally, I'll do the odd gig because it's my
Yeah.
business, and sometimes clients will say, "Oh, is Matt doing it?" And if I'm free, I will still dust off the dancing shoes, as they say. But yeah, I did that for years, and it was an amazing experience.
I mean, look, there's no shame in going back to it, right? If all else fails, right?
Well, hell yeah. I mean, the thing about, I say that it was an amazing experience, and it was in so many ways, but the thing that just didn't work for me is the lifestyle is tough. Like you're traveling miles and miles to do different gigs. You're sometimes getting home at 5 a.m. and, it's quite an unsociable, quote unquote, job, if you like.
Yeah.
But the actual, we performed all around the world. We've performed at, festivals it's in Barcelona, Germany. People, like, some of our biggest audiences were over 25,000 people watching us. So,
Insane.
it's insane. It is insane. And we've done things like be on the Graham Norton show on BBC One and met the real Take That. So, there's been so much that I'm grateful for. That was amazing with that job. It's just after years and years of it, I was like, I don't want to live this touring lifestyle kind of thing.
You said you met the real Take That. What did Mark Owen say when he met you?
So he was amazing. I was talking to Gary Barlow at the time. This is backstage after we'd finished filming, and we were just having a chat. And I looked to the left of me, and I realized Mark was patiently waiting for me to finish my conversation so that he could speak to me, which is such a surreal thing when you've played that guy for so long, and he's then
Yeah.
waiting to introduce himself. And it was just, we had a brief chat, and he just said something along the lines of, "Thank you so much for doing what you do. We really appreciate it." And he gave me a big hug, and it was just lovely. And I did a one-off charity event once that was a solo, because Mark Owen even though he's into that, he has had solo albums and he's had a few records out and things like that. And he's got like some die-hard fans that love his solo material. So we did a charity night where this is years back, but I did a solo show of his stuff. And he actually tweeted me back then and said, good luck for it. And we was supporting a charity Beyond Autism. And he like tweeted about that and said, and so he's been really lovely, which is great because when you're doing a show like that or a job like that, if the real thing knows about you and they don't like you, like that could be the end. They could like be like,
Yeah.
they could tarnish your reputation, close it off, but they've actually been supportive. And Gary Barlow said he thought we were brilliant. So you can't get better than that.
And finally, let's touch up on setting up Success School. What would you say your favorite thing about it has been so far?
I would say the people, the transformations that I've seen people have gone through because of what we do at Success School. So for people who don't know,
Yeah.
Success School is my podcast, but it's also a platform where I coach people. We've got a membership that people can join for just £19 a month. So it's quite an affordable membership.
Good
And we,
price.
we've got about 70 members in that membership. And, we do group calls every week and things like that. And so it's just been such a joy to be creating something that just started out as a hobby that is now not only a business, but it's something where people genuinely say, "Oh my God, had I not have done that, I was in such a dark place." And actually, I've had people say it saved me. It's just knowing that we've made a difference to people's lives. You can't put a price on that. That is the most rewarding, fulfilling thing really that you could do. And yeah, I love it.
And what is your advice for anyone who's setting up like a business like yours?
There's a lot of advice I could give. When I reflect on my personal journey, I would say the sooner you can get help and advice from people that have done or are doing what you want to do, I would say take it. And obviously, there's free advice. Listen to podcasts with those people, watch their content, watch their YouTubes, things like that. But if you can, work with them or have a call with them or follow their course or whatever. Because when I was 19 years old, and back then I didn't know of any business mentors or coaches or even podcasts back then. And I had years and years and years of just making bad decisions because I didn't know what I was doing. The sooner you can get help and get support and accountability and encouragement and guidance, from somebody who knows what they're talking about, not just your mate down the pub sort of thing. I would say that is some of the most important advice I could give somebody.
Oh, Matt, that was great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
My
I,
pleasure.
I might have to get some advice on my podcast from you at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, stay in touch. And like I say about my stuff there, I've got my membership and all that kind of stuff. So feel free to get involved.
Thanks, Matt. I'm just going to stop the recording.